Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Insight Vibes. I'm Emily, your host for today's deep dive conversation. We're discussing one of the most talked about comparisons in modern political history.
And I'm Michael. Today, we're going to break things down calmly, logically, and respectfully. No drama, no shouting, just a clean, balanced debate that helps you think for yourself.
Let's start with the economy, the foundation of any nation's stability. Whenever people compare Trump and Biden, the economic debate is usually the first one that comes up. And honestly, it's also the most emotional one, because the economy directly affects jobs, prices, business, and everyday life.
Exactly. And when people say Trump helped business or Biden saved the economy after the pandemic, both sides actually have reasons behind their views. Let's break this down slowly, in detail, so our listeners at Insight Vibes can understand the bigger picture, not just headlines.
Supporters of Donald Trump highlight three major ingredients in his economic strategy: tax cuts, regulatory rollbacks, a business-friendly environment. Their argument is that these three factors directly push economic growth and create confidence among business owners.
Business-friendly policies gave small business owners the confidence to invest and expand. Unemployment pre-pandemic reached historic lows. Major stock indices, Nasdaq, S&P 500, Dow Jones, were all climbing strongly.
For many Americans, especially those involved in trade, real estate, construction, and small businesses, Trump's first 3 years felt like a boom period.
But critics point out that the stock market alone is not the full picture of the economy. Still, supporters genuinely felt the economy was moving fast and confidently.
Now let's talk about Biden's side. Biden supporters believe that his administration stabilized a broken, pandemic-hit economy. Their focus was on recovery, not speed.
Exactly. Biden's team worked on stimulus packages, infrastructure investments, domestic manufacturing revival, clean energy expansion, and long-term economic development.
The focus was more on future-proofing than short-term boost. The infrastructure bill, one of the largest in decades, funded roads, bridges, broadband internet, renewable energy, and manufacturing hubs. These investments don't show immediate results, but they reshape the economy over 5 to 15 years.
Supporters argue that America needed stability and modernization, not just fast growth. Post-pandemic normalization was the first critical step.
If we simplify both economic approaches, Trump equals immediate business boost. Biden equals long-term structural growth.
This is one of the clearest differences between the two presidents. Trump supporters value momentum. They want the engine to run fast. Biden supporters value the foundation. They want the engine to be strong.
And both sides' logic is easy to understand once you look at your own priorities.
Exactly. If you run a small business, tax cuts feel great. If you focus on infrastructure, public services, or long-term employment sectors, Biden's model seems logical.
Emily Lightlaugh. Ultimately, listeners of Insight Vibes get to decide which model makes more sense to you: fast growth or long-term foundation.
Immigration is one of the most emotional and complicated topics in American politics. It's not just about numbers, borders, or laws. It's about families, identity, security, jobs, and the future of a nation.
When we compare Trump and Biden, immigration is a perfect example of how two leaders can look at the same problem yet propose completely different solutions.
Let's begin with Donald Trump. His approach was simple, direct, and strict. Secure the border first, everything else second.
Wall construction, increased Border Patrol funding, tougher asylum rules, and more aggressive deportation policies were the pillars of his strategy.
Supporters argue that Trump's logic was clear. If you don't control who enters your country, you risk losing control over the economy, security, and resources.
And for many Americans, especially those living in border states like Texas, Arizona, and New Mexico, this argument wasn't just political, it was personal.
Build a physical barrier along the southern border, strengthen ICE, which is Immigration and Customs Enforcement, speed up deportations of undocumented individuals, tighten asylum rules to prevent misuse, pressure other countries to limit illegal crossings.
For Trump supporters, this approach wasn't about cruelty, it was about order, law, and national safety.
They believe you can't effectively manage healthcare, housing, or education if the border itself isn't controlled.
Now let's move to Biden's approach. If Trump believed in security first, Biden's philosophy is humanity first.
Biden focused on expanding legal pathways, creating fair asylum processing, and supporting vulnerable families, especially children and refugees.
His administration emphasized that America is a nation built by immigrants, and the system should reflect fairness and dignity.
Improve asylum systems to reduce backlog, support undocumented families already living in the U.S., provide pathways for Dreamers, which are DACA recipients, end harsh separation policies, address root causes, poverty, violence, instability in home countries. Supporters believe Biden's model is more humane, moral, and aligned with America's identity as a nation of immigrants.
They argue that strict enforcement alone can't solve the issue. Organized legal alternatives are essential.
When you look at the bigger picture, both approaches make sense depending on priorities. If your main concern is safety, illegal activity, or job competition, Trump's strict border policies feel reassuring.
But if you prioritize humanitarian support, family unity, refugee protection, and fair legal processes, Biden's approach seems logical. And that's why immigration is such a complex debate. Both sides are advocating for what they deeply believe in.
One side sees undocumented immigration as a threat. The other sees hardworking families seeking a chance. Some families felt relief under Biden's policies. Some communities felt safer under Trump's enforcement.
And these aren't just statistics, they're real human stories. And it's interesting to see the economic implications as well.
Economists disagree. Some argue immigrants compete for low-skilled jobs. Others say they fill essential positions Americans avoid.
And Trump supporters highlight potential wage suppression. Biden supporters emphasize workforce expansion and long-term growth.
And both arguments are backed by research.
Polls indicate most Americans don't want open borders, but also reject harsh treatment of immigrants.
The majority favors a balanced approach, strong security with fair legal pathways.
Politics often pushes extremes, but reality demands nuanced solutions.
Ultimately, immigration isn't just a policy issue. It's a humanitarian, economic, and moral challenge.
And that's why neither Trump's strictness nor Biden's compassion alone can fully solve it. Real solutions require complexity and cooperation.
Listeners of Insight Vibes, you've now heard both sides clearly. It's your turn to decide which approach resonates with your values.
Now, let's turn to foreign policy, another area where Trump and Biden couldn't be more different. Foreign policy is complex because it involves national security, trade, diplomacy, military strategy, and global reputation. It's not just about headlines. It's about decisions that affect millions both inside and outside the U.S.
Exactly. Trump and Biden both wanted to protect American interests, but their methods and philosophies diverged sharply. Trump's approach was unilateral, bold, and focused on direct negotiation.
Biden's approach emphasizes alliances, partnerships, and multilateral cooperation.
Let's break that down. Trump's foreign policy mantra was simple: America first. This meant prioritizing U.S. economic and security interests above all else, often through direct and unconventional strategies.
During his tenure, Trump focused heavily on trade deals, especially renegotiating NAFTA into USMCA, pressuring NATO allies to increase defense spending, leveraging tariffs to gain negotiation advantages, direct, sometimes confrontational diplomacy with China, North Korea, and other nations.
Supporters argue that Trump's approach made the U.S. more assertive globally. He challenged long-standing norms, questioned multilateral agreements, and demanded accountability from allies. For many Americans, this approach felt like a return to strong leadership, someone willing to defend U.S. interests directly without relying on bureaucratic consensus.
Now contrast that with Joe Biden. His foreign policy relies on alliances, partnerships, and global cooperation.
Biden strengthened relationships with NATO, reinforced commitments to the UN, and emphasized international coordination on climate, trade, and security.
He focused on collective strength rather than unilateral pressure. For example, during the Afghanistan withdrawal, Biden consulted allies extensively, and in trade, he worked to restore partnerships strained under Trump.
Biden believes long-term security comes from collaboration and diplomacy. America is stronger when it leads the world
In cooperation, not just in confrontation.
Trump's strategy can be summed up as direct action and bold negotiation. Biden's strategy is collaborative action and coalition building.
Supporters of Trump value immediate results and decisive leadership. Supporters of Biden value long-term stability, predictability, and consensus building.
Both approaches have strengths and weaknesses. Trump's method can produce fast results but risks alienating allies. Biden's method can take longer to yield outcomes but strengthens trust and long-term partnerships.
Let's examine some major areas of impact. China and trade. Trump imposed tariffs, confronted China directly, pushed for favorable trade deals. Biden uses diplomacy, works with allies to counter China's influence collectively.
Middle East and defense. Trump brokered historic Israel-Arab agreements, the Abraham Accords, and used military deterrence. Biden focuses on diplomacy, human rights considerations, and regional stability.
Climate and environment. Trump withdrew from the Paris Agreement, prioritized economic growth over environmental treaties. Biden rejoined the Paris Agreement, emphasizes clean energy partnerships and international climate commitments.
Each president had different priorities. Trump's approach is transactional and outcome-driven. Biden's approach is systemic and alliance-driven.
Trump relied heavily on military strength as leverage. His negotiations with North Korea are a prime example: bold, public-facing diplomacy.
Biden prefers subtle, behind-the-scenes diplomacy, relying on intelligence, cooperation, and gradual pressure. He emphasizes predictable decision-making to avoid sudden shocks in global relations.
Again, supporters of each side see their leader as protecting America effectively, one with bold actions, the other with strategic patience.
So, listeners, foreign policy isn't just about what happens overseas. It's about how decisions ripple back home. Trade impacts jobs, alliances affect security, and climate strategies influence energy costs.
Exactly. Trump gives a sense of immediate action and assertiveness. Biden offers structured, multilateral, and long-term stability.
Ultimately, which strategy feels right depends on your worldview. Do you value speed and boldness or collaboration and predictability? And as always, Insight Vibes listeners, there's no one-size-fits-all answer. Both perspectives shape the future of America in very real ways.
Thank you for tuning in to Insight Vibes. Like, share, and subscribe for more honest discussions, deep insights, and thought-provoking episodes. See you in the next one.